Hello and welcome to the Creamsicle Chronicle podcast. My name is JT Olson. With me, as always, is my co-host Garrett Ballard. Garrett, how are you this evening?
I'm doing great. Lightning fresh off a 4-0 sweep of the Florida Panthers. I was at that game, so I'm doing great this week. Excited for this episode we got coming up. Should be an exciting one.
And I think this episode is particularly exciting because people have to listen to me less. Because today we are joined by a guest. We have one Hunter Thompson joining the show with us today. Hunter, how are you?
Pretty good, man. How are y'all doing?
Doing good. Excited to have you on.
Fantastic.
Yeah, real quick, I just want to say before we get started, Hunter, I want to give you the chance to kind of plug anything you want to, any websites you write for, anything you're working on. So,
for sure. I write and kind of do a podcast sometimes at Falcons ATB, and I write for Neptune Scouting on Twitter. So give it a follow.
That's right, folks. You heard that correctly. Hunter is representing the Falcons on this podcast. This Buccaneers podcast has brought in an enemy of the state. But that's why we do it, because if you follow the Buccaneers, you are in fact following the teams they play, their rivals, their competition for the division, all the teams that are potentially standing in their way of where they want to go. And the Falcons are always going to be one of those teams that's tied to the Bucs because we play them twice a year, every year. And it was not long ago that this team was kicking the Bucs in the teeth yearly.
Yeah, I always remember Julio Jones just torching Vernon Hargraves, Alteron Werner, all those guys, Jude Ajay-Barima for 300 yards, dropping 50s on our head. It was tough for a while.
No, it's the other way around. Now y'all are torching us. It's the tide's turn. That's just how it is sometimes.
Well, let's start right there. Obviously, the Bucs are in an uptick right now. They're in their Super Bowl window. Falcons are not quite where they were a few years ago when they were in the Super Bowl. What was that, 46? Or no, 49.
It was 51, I think.
51?
2016.
Math, never my strong suit.
Same.
But obviously, those days feel long gone as the Falcons finished 7 and was it 10 last year?
Yes, because with the 17th game, it keeps throwing me off. But yeah,
I know it's a weird adjustment. I'm not there yet. So let me start by asking, Hunter, where do you view the Falcons in their life cycle? Is this a team that's rebuilding as they've traded away Julio Jones and Matt Ryan in consecutive seasons, or is this a team that's reloading?
I think it's more of a rebuild than a reload. They've tried to keep a couple of the core guys in place. They re-signed Jake Matthews and Grady Jarrett, 2 extensions. They brought in some young guys last year, Kyle Pitts, Richie Grant, Taquan Graham. All those guys are looking to have pretty big roles this year. And then this year they added like Drake London, Arnold Ekebeti. I probably just butchered his name, but him, Tice Anderson from where is he from? Montana State. Absolutely blanking on his name right there. And then Desmond Ritter. So what they're trying to do, what it looks like, is just get a bunch of good young core guys in place, and definitely rebuilding right now.
Yeah, I kind of just want to follow that up real quick. You talked about all the young talent they're bringing in, and I think a big part of that is because of just where this team was roster-wise last year. Obviously, it was Matt Ryan's last year. Julio's gone. The only real young guy that's really standing out there's probably 2, AJ Terrell and Kyle Pitts. Obviously, you lost a key linebacker this year to the Jags. I don't know. What was his name? Foy
Aloku.
Yeah. I from what I remember, he was a pretty big role player for you guys. How do you think the Falcons did in the early rounds of the draft to kind of bolster that young core into hopefully giving you guys a bit of a boost this season?
I actually really love what they did this year with the draft. The only pick I'm not absolutely in love with was Drake London, but that's just because I had other receivers on the board higher than him. But I think he's a safe pick. He kind of fits what Arthur Smith likes, big physical receivers doing crossers and all the different stuff across the middle. Calvin Ridley was not that last year. Calvin Ridley is not a fan of getting hit from what it seems. And so having a guy like London and then like trading for Brian Anderson, adding Auden Tate, adding these big physical receivers, it gives Arthur Smith more what he wants to be able to do and gives him the freedom to incorporate more of his true schemes into the offense. But as a whole, I've absolutely loved what they did in this draft. Last draft, there were a couple picks I liked, a couple I didn't. But that's just how it is most of the time. But I like how we're getting younger. I like that we're adding guys, rookies predominantly, in the key positions, with the exceptions like Terrell, Pitts, and Chris Lindstrom. But other than that, like, we have a bunch of young guys in these key positions, and I'm really excited for that. I don't know if it's going to be good or not, but it's going to be different. It's going to be exciting, and that's something I haven't said in years.
Chris Lindstrom, I knew I forgot one.
It happens. He's a guard. Everyone forgets him.
Get no love in the trenches. Hunter, you mentioned a name there in Calvin Ridley, and obviously we all know he's suspended for this year for betting on sports or betting on NFL games. But when you talk about Drake London and Kyle Pitts, Calvin Ridley potentially coming back and joining them next year, that sounds like a dangerous combination. Is that something you expect? What is the long-term outlook for Calvin Ridley? Is he going to be a Falcon moving forward?
Personally, I have no idea. I expect that he has played his last game in a Falcons uniform, because I know right before the suspension hit, there was a deal in place to send him to the Eagles, I think. And we ended up withdrawing from that as soon as we got word of the suspension, because you don't want to screw someone over in the NFL with only 32 people you can work with. You don't really want to start burning bridges. But I kind of expect Ridley to just serve a suspension on a roster and then probably just be a roster cut, cap space. I don't really expect to see him back, which is a shame because I've always loved Calvin. I think he's a hell of a player. But he's not really a scheme fit. And then with the suspension too, there's just not a big reason to keep him in place.
I do kind of want to touch on the people that are going to be throwing the ball to these receivers and these tight ends. There's a big transition this offseason, obviously, with Matt Ryan getting traded to the Indianapolis Colts. And then y'all got Marcus Mariota, who is the presumed week 1 starter. But then y'all went and got and drafted Desmond Ridder, a pretty big quarterback name in this draft. It was 3rd round, right?
3rd round pick, yeah.
3rd round. Personally, I think that is perfect value for Desmond Ridder, but I just kind of want to get your thoughts on the quarterback situation there in Atlanta.
Yeah, so I think Mariota will probably be the starter. I do hope, though, if the QB competition in the summer is even remotely close, then I hope they give the ball to Ridder, because I really want to see what he has and what he can do, because I don't expect this team to be good next year. I really don't at all. And if we're picking like top 3, top 4, something like that, I want to at least know that we've done our diligence with Ridder. And then at that point, we can make the decision if we want to go for a CJ Stroud or a Bryce Young or something like that. But I hope they give the ball to Ridder. But in terms of like their play styles and everything like that, they're very similar. I think Mariota is the perfect person to kind of mentor Desmond Ridder as he's coming into the league. They both do a lot of things Arthur Smith likes. He loves having the mobile quarterback. He loves the crossers. He loves RPOs, play action bootlegs, all that stuff. And that stuff we couldn't really get with Matt Ryan last year just due to personnel. We couldn't really do the RPOs and the bootlegs because Matt's not really a threat to run. Always been a huge fan, but he's never really been very mobile, ever. And then in terms of like the crossers and the passing concepts, we weren't able to implement that either because all of our receivers were under 6 foot last year, with the exception of Kyle Pitts. So sending a guy like Zacchaeus across the middle doesn't really end up super, super well. And the guy who was best at it was injured a lot of the year, Russell Gage. He also, newest free agent addition. Also got a hell of a player right there, by the way. Great guy for y'all.
Love to hear that.
But, I'm excited to see what we can do because, like I was saying, I hope Arthur Smith has the freedom to call stuff that he's comfortable with and just incorporate more of the playbook. And just I want to see a fun team this year. They don't have to be good. I just want fun, and I think Mariota and Ritter can give us that.
Well, I think you certainly have the making for fun in what they're building there. Kyle Pitts in the first round last year, Drake London in the first round this year. For a team that a month ago we were talking about how depleted the weapons are, those are two really impressive targets for a young quarterback like Desmond Ritter. Even with that, it sounds like you're not super optimistic about what Ritter will be, talking about possibly getting a quarterback early in the draft next year. So let's assume Ritter wins the starting job from week 1. What exactly do you expect the season to look like? Is it a 3,000-yard, 1,000-yard rushing kind of season? Is it more touchdowns and interceptions, like, kind of similar to what we saw Zach Wilson? What do you expect from him?
Yeah, so it's an interesting thing because that's kind of like the big thing going on through like Falcon circles right now is like what would be considered a successful season for Desmond Ritter. And some people are saying, the stats aspect. Some people say they want to see like just physical improvement on what he was at Cincinnati to where he is at the end of his rookie season. For me, it's kind of a combination of the two. I would like for him to make the throws that he should make, because that was one of his biggest issues at Cincinnati was he would miss a lot of like the easy layups. He struggled with throwing to the right side, and I'd like to see him just work on that regard. I'd like to see him not really turn the ball over. He doesn't have to throw for 4,000 yards or anything like that, but just maybe hit like in terms of the stat production, like 3,400 yards. That's about 200 yards a game, and I don't know, 20 touchdowns. That would be phenomenal, and less than an INT a game would be like the dream for me. And then just show that in terms of the on the field stuff, he's fixing a lot of the issues, working on mechanics, working on decision making, going through his reads, understanding pressures, concepts, and all that stuff. And I just want to see him grow as the season goes on, and that's it. It's just a interesting thing with Ritter because not many third-round QBs really get a chance to start early. And because it's a third-round pick, the expectations are different than, say, like a Zach Wilson or a Fields last year. So I don't really know what I want from Ritter. I just want to see progress as the season goes on.
I think that's a pretty good way to describe that because I think a lot of people are just dead set on seeing statistical goals. Like he's like, he threw for 3,500 yards. This is a good pick. But if he's throwing 20 interceptions, there's that trade-off. I think a big part of this team that I feel, unless I'm just forgetting some pickups in free agency, the offensive line doesn't really inspire me in any way. Obviously, you have Chris Lindstrom, like you said earlier. But other than that, we've seen very little redeeming tape from guys like Jalen Mayfield. Who's the guy from Washington y'all drafted?
Caleb McGarry, a couple years back.
Caleb McGarry. Yeah, the tackles have not been very good. So I just kind of want to get your thoughts on where the offensive line is standing at this moment in time.
Yeah, so I'm a little bummed that we did not do more for the offensive line this offseason. But it seems that Arthur Smith has a pretty similar mindset to me in some regards. My big thing is, I think the offensive line, the thing that makes it best is just chemistry and familiarity of playing with each other. And so I'm hoping that next year we can see guys like Mayfield and Hennessy and McGarry take jumps. But in terms of just tangible pieces that are actually worth anything right now, it's literally just Lindstrom and Jake Matthews. I'm not sold on Matt Hennessy. Matt Hennessy is another big talking point in Falcons Twitter and Falcons Spheres of if he's good or not, because he grades out really, really well for PFF. But his just watching him every week, he does not pass the eyeball test at all at center. He gets bulldozed regularly. He struggled with working with Mayfield in terms of alignments and blocking concepts and all that stuff. And it was honestly a lot of the issues last season on the O-line was just a lack of communication between Mayfield and Henney. And I was hoping we would maybe address the center position because I'm not confident on Matt Hennessy at all. I'm willing to give Mayfield at least another shot out there because last year, left guard, his first year in a new position. There were flashes of him looking semi-competent, so that's okay, I guess. But I'm not comfortable with the offensive line, and I was really hoping to see them do more.
Yeah, I think this is a lot of work to be done with this Falcons rebuild. I think leading up to it with the massive contracts of Julio Jones and Matt Ryan, you knew it was these last few years were the process of breaking it down before you can build it back up. And I feel like in some ways the rebuild starts this year. That being said, I feel like Terry Fontenot has really weathered this storm fairly well. I know the Falcons definitely exceeded my expectations last year. You talk, about guys like Gary and some of the, picks that haven't worked out. Those were previous to his regime for a lot of them. How would you describe Terry Fontenot and the job he's done so far?
So I was actually really, really bummed when we hired Terry Fontenot. He was not my first choice. He was probably like my fourth choice on my short list of who I wanted. I really wanted Brad Holmes, who ended up getting the Detroit job. And so when we picked Fontenot, I was like, all right, I'll let it be. We'll see how this goes. And there were some people on Falcons Twitter who were like, Hunter, just chill. It'll be good. Fontenot's a good pick. Whatever. I'm like, yeah, we'll see. And at this point in time, I've been really impressed with what he's done outside of probably the whole Deshaun Watson debacle, which is why I think Matt Ryan's probably not on roster. I'm not accusing it. That's my theory. But I don't think that had anything to do with Fontenot or Smith. I think that had Arthur Blank and Rich McKay written all over it. But outside of the whole Deshaun Watson saga, then I think Fontenot has done an incredible job. I've absolutely loved this draft. Last year, he brought in some good role pieces and just guys to help fill spots and fill roles. Taquan Graham should hopefully be starting opposite of Grady Jarrett this year as the opposing 3-tech. Richie Grant is looking to be a starting safety this year. Kyle Pitts is Kyle Pitts. Mayfield started left guard. I don't know if he should be starting left guard, but he'll probably be starting left guard again. So that's potentially 4 starters from last year's draft. And then this year, you have a couple guys who should just step into starting roles and see time early. So that's been good. But the thing that's been really, really impressive to me is just the way he's handled the veteran and the free agent and trading market. He signed Lorenzo Carter for a really cheap deal, who should hopefully be a solid veteran in the edge room. The Bryan Edwards trade I absolutely loved. A bunch of I love a lot of the under the radar signings that they've made. Last year with Cordell Patterson, I was a little confused about it at first, but then seeing how Arthur Smith used him in a Deebo Samuel type role, that was super cool. I feel like I'm missing. The Casey Hayward signing this year was fantastic. Pair him up with AJ Terrell and Isaiah Oliver. That's a pretty formidable CB room. It's not great, but it's a good aspect to have on a team that doesn't really have a lot of strong position groups. So I've been really impressed with Fontenot over his time so far in Atlanta.
I do want to just take a little bit of time to highlight that defensive secondary. This is a division with a lot of good wide receiver talent, not only on the Bucs, but the Saints just drafted Chris Olave. They probably will have Michael Thomas coming back. The Panthers got DJ Moore. Are you confident in this secondary, given the upgrades that y'all have made the last couple of years to kind of weather the storm?
Yeah, I am actually. The secondary is probably the only position group that I'm very confident in right now. Terrell's turning into what looks to be a potential.
Should have been an All-Pro last year.
He should have been an All-Pro.
He was very good.
Yeah, I didn't want to sound too biased when I said it, but he's looking like a top 5 corner in the NFL right now. Casey Hayward's probably a fringe CB1 on bad rosters, so plugging him at CB2 is not bad. Isaiah Oliver looked incredible in the nickel role last year before he went down with his ACL injury. So I'm hoping maybe he bounces back. And then Jalen Hawkins and Richie Grant both have had promising aspects to their young careers so far. And if that's the starting safety duo, which is sounding like it is coming out of OTAs, then that's a pretty solid secondary for me. And I'm very ecstatic about it. So,
yeah, looking at the defense, I think the secondary definitely looks like strength, and maybe that's just because AJ Terrell is there. But I think a lot of the reasons you touched on is why I think there's promise there. Talk to me about the front seven, because I see talent in the front seven, but at the same time, it looks like a little bit of a hodgepodge at some positions. You mentioned Carter, who I think is a nice pickup, and they drafted Arnold Abikade.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like this is going to be a 4-3 or a 3-4 style defense, but it definitely feels like it's lacking on the defensive line.
Yeah, so it's an interesting, the the defensive line is still just absolutely brutal because we don't really have much outside of Grady Jarrett in terms of just much to work with at all. Arnold Ekabedi he's not exactly who I wanted at that pick, but I'm still excited about it because he's a good player. I wanted Boye Mafe, but it's whatever. He went the pick after, and they're the same type of player, so it's not a huge deal. But Grady Jarrett is by far the focal point of the defensive line. They've been struggling to get him a running mate since the Super Bowl run back in 2016. They had Rashid Hageman back then, and having like the big, just giant there, like plugging holes for Grady to eat one-on-ones. That's how he worked, and they've failed to address that the past few years. So that's an interesting situation to have because they've just been failing to address that. But I'm excited with what they've done with the linebacker room. It was a bummer to lose Foye, but I love the Troy Anderson pick. I love signing Rashaan Evans in free agency. Michael Walker's looking to hopefully step up this year. Deion Jones is a bit of a conundrum at the moment because he's not really a scheme fit under this new system, and he is a June 1st cut, so I don't necessarily expect – or he's a candidate for a June 1st cut. I don't really expect him to be on roster come next season, so that's going to be another interesting dynamic how they're going to work with that. Jeff Schultz from The Athletic just dropped an article about Deion Jones the other day, and in it talked about how Deion's not really a scheme fit or anything like that. He's been struggling with shoulder issues, and one thing that stood out was Schultz specifically said if Deion were at least something in the locker room, like some form of leader in the locker room, then it'd be a different story of keeping him around. But he hasn't been. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the front seven actually ends up looking like. But there are pieces in place that I like. I like the Rashaan Evans signing. He has best year under Dean Pease in Tennessee. Troy Anderson, loved that pick. Rob, a little bit on the more raw side, but he's very, very good. The edges, I'm hoping Ogundeji's going to step up this year. He looked pretty good in spurts last year, at least as a run defender. So hopefully he's going to work on his pass pro. And then on the defensive line, it's Grady and whoever they decide to run with him. I know Marlon Davidson is probably going to get the first jab at the spot, but he's been a little lackluster so far. I think it'll go to Taquan Graham. I really do. He started showing out towards the end of the season, and just he's their guy. Well, Marlon Davidson was under Thomas Dimitrov and Dan Quinn, so it's not really a missed opportunity if they decide to move on from him, in my opinion.
Let me ask a quick follow-up to that. You mentioned Davidson, you mentioned Graham. These are all guys, including Grady Jarrett, who are fringe 300 pounds, 303, 305. Who is your starting nose on this team? Are they just kind of rotating more pass rushers, or is this
so
different answer there?
Last year, it was a combination of Tyler Davison and Anthony Rush and Mike Pennell. It was a combination of those three were the starting noses, and they were the ones that saw the rotation at nose. They re-signed Anthony Rush this year, and they haven't really done much to really address the nose position. So it's probably going to be Anthony Rush, I would assume, since they brought him back and haven't really added anybody else. But I think they're going to be running a lot of nickel looks with a lot of the just smaller linemen because they kicked Grady in and he played nose at times and like the nickel stuff. And he's not awful, in that role for a 300-pound defensive lineman or fringe 300-pound defensive lineman. But he's not like the nose y'all have down there, absolute monster. That's that and the offensive line are my two biggest questions and biggest things I wish they would have addressed this year and more. of a capacity.
Yeah, I kind of, I feel like we've touched on all the important position groups. Obviously, running back, you'll have Cordell or Patterson, but you can kind of just throw anyone there and get some return. So I don't really want to focus on that a ton. But one thing I do want to ask, you might not have an answer for this. It's fine because they're kind of hard to follow it sometimes. Have you heard anything or read anything that could be a bit of a surprise coming out of OTAs?
Not really, at least not that I've seen so far.
Yeah, I think majority of that's going to come after training camp, I feel like.
Yeah, the Falcons also just, from what I've been able to find, have not been dropping a lot of OTA-based stuff.
Okay.
I remember somebody was asking earlier today if I'd seen anything. I haven't. And it's a bummer because I'd like to see how things are going in the OTAs, but nothing's really coming out about that.
Yeah, they are pretty tough to follow. It's kind of just like searching through a pile of hay for a needle, you know.
Exactly.
But I kind of want to, this is a Bucs podcast. Got to shift it a little bit to the Bucs.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It still relates to the Falcons, though. I kind of want to get your opinions on two of the former Falcons players that are now on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously, those are Keanu Neal and Russell Gage. We also signed Deidrin Senat, but I don't think that's going to really do a ton for us.
He's not good.
Yeah,
not a fan. I was happy when he got cut, to be honest.
Okay, so don't expect much from Deidrin Senat if you were, for some reason, Bucs fans. But kind of just give us just little tidbits on Neal and Gage and what to expect.
So I'm going to ask, have they said if Neal's going to be playing more the linebacker or more the safety?
Safety.
Role? He's going to be playing safety again? Okay. Then, in that case, if he can stay healthy, expect a very solid box safety from Neal. Because that's what he is. Like, when healthy, he's an incredible box safety. Should be a good guy for the locker room, good mentor, and just he'll provide a lot of assets in some regards, even if he's not on the field. And Russell Gage, I'm actually very bummed we let him leave and let him walk. But I saw the contract y'all gave him, and I was like, yeah, we're not competing with that. But he's a hell of a guy. He's at best a solid wide receiver 2, but he's a very, very good wide receiver 3, which is what y'all honestly need him for with Evans and Godwin already there. But I think he's going to contribute early since Godwin's out for how long?
Don't really know. ACLs at this point are kind of an unknown in terms of timetable. Some people seem to take a year. Others teams seem to take like 6 months. So I'm going to chalk that up just unknown right now.
Yeah, okay. Makes sense.
I'll just say assume like 2 weeks gone.
Okay. So Godwin will look – or not Godwin. Gage will fill in for Godwin fairly well in those early weeks of the season. And once Godwin comes back in, it'll be interesting to see how you guys scheme up him and Godwin together. Because I think they're kind of a similar mold of receiver, like how you would use them. But obviously Godwin's much better than Gage. But yeah, I love that ad for y'all. I saw y'all signed him, and I was like, shit, he's going to thrive.
I was a big fan of that one. I think JT was too. But I know the Bucs love those type of guys that they can put in the slot, put outside, just kind of really versatile guys who can threaten multiple levels of the field. And I kind of like you said, I really feel like him and Godwin play a similar type of game. So I just think it'll be up to those depth wide receivers that struggled at the end of last year for the Bucs to kind of step up and fill in that wide receiver 3 role for a limited time if they have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when y'all saw Gage, I kind of figured it was the end of like a guy like Tyler Johnson.
I think more so. I honestly don't know how Scotty Miller is favored there right now. JT,
really?
Yeah. What do you think, JT?
In terms of the wide receiver kind of fill in for 3 on the outside?
Yeah. Like if a wide receiver were to get dumped out of like our backup guys, who do you think it would be? Kind of.
Oh, I think it would be Johnson. Johnson does not move the needle for me at all.
Yeah, I think it's probably either Johnson or Miller. I would say Jalen Darden, but he's our return guy right now. And I don't think you can really just toss that out the window.
No, Darden also gives you more than like Gage could in different aspects.
Darden was not good last year. Like he falls so much.
Yeah.
He falls.
Well, he can stretch the field though, can he? Like fairly well-ish.
I think he was like a like a low 4.5 guy, a high 4.4 guy coming out of college.
Jesus, I thought he was faster than that. Never mind.
I think he's a quicker than fast kind of guy, but he's not slow either.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's interesting that to see what if he's on the field at all, other than for kick returns, what role he's going to be in, because like he didn't really impress me at all when he was taking receiver reps last year. So
yeah, I was never a huge fan of his, like when he was coming out of college or anything like that. I could have sworn he was faster than he was, by the sound of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up because I actually want to know too.
Because like at least in my head, I was like, okay, Darden can at least be a guy that can like maybe take the top off in some regard.
Yeah.
But
I think he can to a degree because Chris Godwin does, and I think Godwin's a little bit faster, but Godwin didn't run a blazing 40 either. I think it was mid 4.4s.
Yeah, Darden ran a 4.46.
Jesus, I thought he was gonna be faster than that.
He is tiny, so you'd expect it. So
yeah, his tape, he looked so much faster in college.
Yeah,
but whatever, I guess.
That's what playing in Northern Texas. Yeah.
Have y'all signed anybody to pair with Vita Vea yet, like to fill the Sue role?
We drafted Logan Hall from Houston.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'm holding out hope that there's going to be one more addition. I think Akeem Hicks is still out there, and he's kind of my dream signing. In terms of the remaining free agents.
Yeah.
Just kind of a depth pass rusher. Bring that experience, bring that talent. Hopefully, keep him healthy.
I was terrified y'all were going to end up with Devontae Wyatt because he would have been the perfect guy to slot in right there next to Vita Vea.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about Devontae Wyatt. I think he's good. There are definitely some concerns that I think we both kind of had with him, namely just being his production. But that did just kind of seem to be like a Georgia D-line kind of thing because Travon Walker didn't have a ton of production either.
No, Georgia's defense is incredibly weird, about production from their defensive guys.
Yeah.
Especially for having that many guys go early, none of them really were big production guys. So
yeah, it will be interesting to kind of. I'm definitely going to be following his development closely because I kind of want to see what the Bucs. Him and Lewis Sign are the two guys that I thought the Bucs would have been really high on in the first round and traded out. Even though they could have drafted both of them. And then they ended up going to get Logan Hall, who I think is going to be a good player, but I think it's going to take him a little bit more time than Devontae Wyatt to kind of adjust to the NFL.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how you guys end up using Logan Hall because I kind of viewed him as more of an edge. And if y'all kick him in to be more like a 3-tech, then I'm sure he'll still be fine.
Yeah. I did see because one of our concerns was that he weighed like 280. I think someone said that he played at like 275 at Houston. Apparently, he was up to like 290 in rookie minicamp and OTAs. But we were saying that he's a gigantic human. He's like 6'6". So we both, I'm pretty sure you thought this too, JT, but we think that he has like the frame to put on more weight. I felt like this was more of a player that would fill that Will Gulston role than the Ndamukong Suh role. Will Gulston, I think, is one of the more underrated interior defensive linemen. And he plays that role for the Bucs. Suh,
still out there.
He's still out there. I'd love to bring him back. I hope.
I don't know why y'all don't bring him back on like a vet minimum. Honestly,
he probably won't take a vet minimum.
Suh is his whole career has been a guy who's playing on his terms. He's always been that bounty hunter kind of player to the highest bidder. And he's a businessman. He's going to make business decisions. His time is valuable versus, is it worth getting paid?
Yeah, I don't think he'll be like, I can go get another ring. Let me take $3 million less dollars. I think he'll just take the money. He tweets about real estate all the time, so he's about the money.
That makes sense. I've never paid attention to him on Twitter. I'm not a huge.
I just see it every once in a while. I'm like, man, Ndamukong Suh, big real estate guy.
Listen, you gotta chase the bag somehow.
Of course, it's respectable. It's very respectable. But it's going to be I guess. What are your expectations for the Falcons against the Bucs this season?
I just hope you guys don't hang 50 on us. Not gonna lie.
Payback's coming.
I just hope it's close-ish. I don't expect to be good this year. I hope the guys that are expected to step up and look good as the season goes on, I hope they do that. And I hope they at least can show that they are good enough to build around going forward. And the Bucs are a good test for that, I think, for any team. You guys are incredibly good. You guys are very good. So
even beyond just the Bucs, I mean, the schedule's been out for a little while now. I'm sure you've gone through, and the game we all play. This game's a win. This game's a loss. This game's a win. What do you anticipate the Falcons' record looking at the end of the year with a team that I thought overachieved with 7 last year? Do they take a step forward? Are they, probably in that 7 range still for you?
So the thing with the Falcons last year is they were the best of the bad. They won pretty much every game they were supposed to win and snuck 1 or 2 out against teams they probably should not have won against. And the 7 is definitely an overachievement. I think this year they're going to take a major step back. I think they're going to win I went through and did the whole win-loss thing. And there's 2 games that I'm confident in saying we should win. And that's the home game against the Panthers and the home game against the Saints. And I'm not even confident in those either. I just think we'll split with each of them. But the Falcons' schedule is brutal. I don't know if you guys have looked at ours, but it's absolutely awful, especially for a team that's starting the rebuild now. It's going to be an absolute slaughterfest for us all year. But I think we could potentially, if we overachieve, I think we squeeze out 6. I think realistically, though, we squeeze out 3 or 4.
So you are saying that this is a tough schedule for a team rebuilding, but from the sound of it, this is the perfect schedule for a team rebuilding. From what I'm hearing, it sounds like you're expecting Falcons to be in play for the number 1 overall pick next year. Am I correct?
I fully expect us to be in play. And so, in turn, Falcons are going to somehow be picking at pick 12. That's just how it's going to go. Because every year I'm 1 away from the guy that I want. So that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
Trey Lance at pick 3 when I wanted him before.
Hey, you got a good one, though. Pitts is a stud.
Oh, yeah. I was not upset with Pitts.
Yeah, guy's a monster. It'll be an interesting year for the Falcons, that's for sure. I fully expect them to be picking a quarterback in round 1 next year.
I think the only way we won't is if Ritter honestly really overachieves and we're not picking top 5. I think if we're outside the top 5, then I think they're going to potentially look away from quarterback if possible. But I think that's kind of what's a successful season for Ritter is are we picking top 5? You're gone. If we're not picking top 5, you're going to be our starting quarterback going forward.
So do you think you were saying that the 6 wins would be an overachievement? Is 6 wins, would that be a Desmond Ritter projection for you?
If Ritter were to start all 17 games, I think we could potentially win 5 games, 6 games. Yeah. Right. I don't think he's that much different than Mariota in terms of stylistically or anything like that. I think Ritter has a much more confident mindset than Mariota has. Because that was the big thing with Mariota at Tennessee was he was a little gun shy. He had a confidence issue. I think he's come out and said that his confidence was shot at Tennessee. And I'll give Ritter this. For all of his flaws, the dude has it in between the ears. He's a very, very good quarterback, and from what I can tell, at least mentally speaking, and just tough and all that. So I think that's the type of guy I'm willing to roll with for 17 games of a rebuild and see what we get.
Yeah, I know a lot of really smart people were really high on Desmond Ritter. I know Ben Solak on Twitter, he was very complimentary of Ritter, best quarterback in the draft, very smart, very high-level analysis. Anyone listening, you should definitely check out Solak's work. Does a great job at The Ringer. Let me ask you a very important question.
Sure.
We are going on 40 minutes in this podcast talking to a Georgia native. We've talked about the Georgia defense, and we have not yet once mentioned Jake Camarda.
Oh my goodness!
Yes.
You're right.
Analysis.
You're right. Give us that punter.
Tell me
Jake
why
Camarda.
Jake Camarda will be the best Georgia rookie in the NFL this year.
So fun fact: I'm not a Georgia fan. I'm actually a South Carolina fan.
Rough life.
It is. I did it to myself by being a Falcons fan and a South Carolina fan.
Imagine being a fan of the team that lost to both of them this year. Go Gators, baby. Come on.
I was shocked we beat y'all. I'm happy we did, obviously.
Me too. It got Dan Mullen fired.
Yeah, I was actually really shocked Mullen underwhelmed for y'all that badly. Anyway, back to Kamara. Sorry, I'm going off topic here. Yeah, I'm curious to see what he does because I know a lot of people really liked him, and the dude's an absolute athlete. I know he tested well at the combine, so I'm really curious to see how he just does, like in terms of just being like, is he gonna make tackles for y'all? Is he just gonna punt it for like I'm curious to see how he actually does.
Yeah.
Because punters are kind of fun. I'm not even gonna lie.
What do you think of punters in the 4th round?
That's a bit of a stretch, but yeah, you guys don't have many holes, so might as well, right? I guess.
So
yeah, I was
secret weapon. We're lining him up at punter and we're lining him up at linebacker.
I was telling JT, I was like, I'm kind of pissed we took a punter because I wanted Zion McCollum, and then they went up and traded for the pick and took Zion McCollum anyway in the 5th round. So I was like, well.
So I had nothing to be upset about with.
Yeah, I was like, I hate the pick at the time, but now it's just like the guy I wanted anyway, so it's, I guess, fine.
I mean, I wanted us to take Jordan Stout in the 5th, so that's just kind of how it is. Because I don't know if we have a punter on roster at the moment.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, you could probably sign Bradley Pinion. We're probably going to cut him.
Yeah, no, I'm going to plus. Yeah, if y'all drafted a guy, I don't want him.
Yeah, Bradley Pinion's not very good. So,
Yeah, we had Thomas Morstead last year who ended up being pretty good, and then he left to Miami, which I don't really blame him. Take your talents to South Beach.
That was an all-time, or at least 2010's greatest punter. That guy was a stud for the Saints for a long time.
Oh, yeah. He's like an all-decades player for the Saints, and we signed him like a year later. It was the weirdest thing.
You know how I know your punters are not going to make the team? Looking at our lads, you have 2 punters signed right now, Dom Maggio and Seth Vernon. And their numbers 36 and 37. There's no chance those numbers make a roster.
Yeah, I didn't even – who'd you say the second name was?
Seth Vernon?
Yeah, I've never even heard of that guy. I'm convinced he's
our lads tells me that he's a rookie. So
wow, well,
Portland State. There you go.
Oh, I didn't realize he was a punter. I knew we signed him. I didn't realize he was a punter. Oh, crap. Okay, well.
Yes, big Sean Alexander fan rocking the 37 jersey.
Man, yeah, I don't think Dom Maggio is going to make it because he was just he's not very good at all, actually.
Yeah. JT, you got anything you want to ask? Anything else you got on your mind?
No, I feel like, Hunter, you provided us some great insight to a Falcons team that sounds like it has some lean years coming, but I think it's definitely putting the foundation in place. And I know I speak for Garrett when I say we appreciate your insight and you taking the time to join us on the show tonight.
Oh, yeah, of course. I actually got one last question before I leave.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
What are your thoughts on the head coaching switch? Or is this going to be like a long-winded question that's going to take time? Because if you don't have time, then...
No, I don't think this will take
time in the world.
Long, but we also have all the time, but I don't think it'll be a very long one. I don't really expect too much to change. I feel like Todd Bowles was the best suited of the 2 to become our next head coach. I feel like Byron Leftwich has a really good hold on the offense, and Todd Bowles a really good hold on the defense, and it just came down to prior experience. Obviously, that experience wasn't the greatest with the Jets, but this is not the Jets. This is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is a high-profile team with a high-profile roster who knows how to handle themselves. I feel like his job is going to be pretty easy considering who we have at quarterback. And guys like Mike Evans, Levante David, going to keep being locker room presences. So I expect very little turnover in terms of head coaching.
Nice. Figured I'd ask. That was one thing I've just been wondering about all off season. That and the whole Brady retiring thing and then unretiring thing.
Oh yeah, that was wild.
Oh, that pissed me off. I was so sad when it came.
I feel like every NFL fan that isn't a Bucs fan. They're like, oh, come on, man.
I got so excited. I was like, we're going to face Kyle. I got excited. I was like, we're going to face Kyle Trask or Blaine Gabbert twice a year. This is exciting. And then it's Brady again. So here we are.
JT, do you have anything to add to that head coaching statement?
Just overall, the continuity is still so strong. Even the promotions they've made in-house. Casey Rogers was Bulls defensive coordinator in New York, and he's going to be a co-defensive coordinator with the Bucks. So, losing Bruce Arian, who is, correct me if I'm wrong, a 2-time Coach of the Year, Super Bowl champion, potential Hall of Famer one day. You don't just replace a guy like that, but it is a seamless replacement for, all things considered.
Yeah, it should be as smooth as it possibly could be for us.
Yeah, nice. I liked the promotion. That's why I just wanted to pick y'all's brains since y'all are like more in-house about it. So
yeah, of course. Yeah.
Anytime I can use the gif of Todd Bowles like snickering and laughing at people, he just cracks me up.
I think on that question, I think we're going to be wrapping up here. Once again, Hunter, we really appreciate you coming on. Follow Hunter. Hunter, it's kind of tough to see your Twitter handle there. Why don't you go ahead and shout it out?
Yeah, my Twitter is H Thompson NFL. I do Falcon stuff and draft stuff. So if you don't like the Falcon stuff, at least follow me for the draft stuff.
There it is. That's kind of like me and JT. So y'all, thanks again for listening. Hunter, have a great night. JT, have a great night. Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.
Not saying that.